may have the power, but you're too scared to use it.
Trust me, I know how to use it.
Hello, I am Jack, and today I will be talking about Masters of the Universe, which was directed by Travis Knight and was written by Chris Butler, Adam Nee, Aaron Nee and David Callahan. The film is of course based off the animated series of the same name, which also spawned its own media franchise outside of this as well, including a previous film adaptation which came out in 1987. And I will be honest, I went into this current film having never really delved into the franchise much. I was aware of it, and I have been aware of it pretty much my whole life, but I couldn't call myself a fan of it. I never really watched any of it, I was only aware of it. However, as someone who didn't grow up watching it, and like I said, didn't really know anything about it outside of the basic premise, I was really entertained by this film. I had a huge amount of fun watching it. I would say the entire cast did a great job to start with. Everybody felt like they had something to bring. As I said, I didn't watch it, so I can't. I didn't watch the original animated series or anything like that, so I can't really say if anyone was miscast. However, from my perspective as someone just watching the film, no one felt like they were. No one stood out in a bad way. Everybody did a really good job. Nicholas Galitzine plays Adam, or He-Man. I hope I'm saying his actual name right there, sorry. He does a really good job. You believe him as sort of both parts of the character, when he is just Adam and then when he is He-Man. He does a great job at both. He does play the person who has been displaced really well. Someone who, you know, is from this other sort of magical fairy tale like place, who has had to spend a lot of his life living as a normal person on Earth, and him trying to get back to the place where he's actually from, and the sort of inner turmoil that someone going through something like that would feel. So he does a great job there with both aspects, and he's really entertaining throughout. And you know, he built up for the role, and you're like, okay, cool, you've certainly worked out to play this character. So he suits that character really well. And you've got Camila Mendes as Teela, who is his best friend from Eternia, and now that they meet each other again as adults, and they have great chemistry together. Both of them do a great job with their scenes together. And she is great as the character as well. She brings a lot of her own energy. She isn't just the best friend / love interest of He-Man. She has a lot to do herself, and she's a very entertaining character. You've got Idris Elba as Duncan, the Man-at-Arms. He's a lot of fun in this film. He was one of my favourite characters in it. He had a lot of cool moments, a lot of funny moments, a lot of great action scenes, so I liked his character. You have Alison Brie as Evil Lynn. Again, she brought a lot of her own energy to this film. I like Alison Brie a lot anyway. She has been really cool in a lot of things I've seen her in, and this is no exception. She certainly knew the vibe of what this film was going for, so she again does a good job. Everyone does a good job. There are a lot of characters in this film, so I'm not going to list every single one, otherwise I will be here for ages, but everybody does a good job. However, my favourite character in this film, by a lot, like he genuinely was my absolute favourite thing, was Skeletor, who is played by Jared Leto. I know Jared Leto's a little bit controversial for a number of reasons, but without going into any of that, because that is not the point of this video, sorry, but Jared Leto as Skeletor was genuinely brilliant. Like he genuinely, as this character, Skeletor in this film, is like one of my favourite things ever now. I was genuinely so entertained by the character, because I mean, first of all, he's absolutely hilarious, whilst also managing to be menacing when he needs to be. They made that perfect balance with it, where he feels like from what I've seen, the original character is meant to be like, whilst also being the believable main villain of this film itself. And I do believe he will be like a future sort of cult thing. Like, I think he'll be one of those things where in like 30 years time there's loads and just like references to, memes about, inside jokes about, references to him. He's like a future, he's like a Jim Carrey is the Grinch and Dr. Robotnik, or Tom Hardy is Venom, or Hank Azaria, I hope I'm really saying that right, sorry, or Hank Azaria as Carmen Ra. He's a future one of them. So I just really loved Skeletor in this film. I thought he was absolutely great.
Evelyn. Evelyn.
Well said, Lord Skeletor. Poetry.
They've taken away his days done. With the new dawn, Titania shall witness my rise. That's it. I finished.
Of course, my lord.
When I raise my fist like that, I'm done.
Yes.
That is the crescendo.
No for the future, my lord.
Speaking of, being funny, this film is, I think, across the board, genuinely hilarious. There were so many laugh out loud moments, so many times where I was just laughing for ages. Lots of little chuckle moments as well, but like I said, there were some genuinely like really big laugh out loud moments. So yeah, and there was lots of them. There weren't many jokes that didn't land. I laughed at pretty much everything that the film wanted me to laugh at. None of it was ironic. None of it was laughing at it in a bad way. I genuinely laughed a lot.
I know it sounds crazy, but that sword is gonna show me the way home.
Sir, you can't do that.
Don't worry, the sword's mine.
The action sequences, again, there are a lot of them, were fantastic for the most part. There are a few bits where it wasn't framed as well, or was maybe cut a bit too quickly, but other than that, the action sequences were really good, and they were really long as well. There were a lot of like long action set pieces that would then lead into something else, and it would become a different type of action set piece, go from hand-to-hand fight scene to a chase sequence and things like that. So there was a lot of action in this film, and it was all quite long, and like I said, sometimes it would change what type of action sequence it is. So all of that was, well, most of that was really good. The CGI and the sets and the prosthetics and the effects to bring this film to life, be it the characters or the locations, were really good again for the most part. There was the odd bit where you can go, okay, I can see that this is green screened, it looks a bit fake, but other than the odd moment like that, it looked really good. The prosthetics in particular for some of the characters were absolutely excellent. Back to Skeletor for a second, both the prosthetics for the body and the CGI for the face, all excellent. The character looked amazing, and Eternia as well, and generally looked incredible as well. And obviously the effects and stuff helped with the action sequences for the bits that needed to be CGI. So across the board, the effects looked mostly perfect, really. All of them were nearly as good as they can be. All of them were pretty much flawless, apart from, like I say, the odd bit where you could tell it was green screen. The score was absolutely excellent. Daniel Pemberton, who did the score for Project Hail Mary earlier in the year, also did the score for this, And like with that film, he did an amazing job here. I've actually gone and since downloaded some of the score pieces from the film. It was absolutely excellent. I saw this film in IMAX, and not only did it look excellent, but it sounded absolutely incredible as well. So the score was brilliant. I'm sure fans of the franchise, outside of this film, long-time fans, will notice a lot of familiar things with the theme and have a big sense of nostalgia from it. Like I said, I wouldn't have much of that personally, but it just sounded incredible and added to everything that was going on, be it a action piece or a more emotional, or even a more emotional moment, or like when he gets the power and he's lifting the sword in the air, things like that. The music made moments like that feel even more epic. So yeah, the score was absolutely incredible and added to whatever was going on. And overall, I was just really, really entertained by this film. And I think that's what this film is trying to do. I don't think anyone who wanted to go see this film was expecting it to be like some super emotional, life-changing piece of cinema. That isn't what this film is. It's not meant to be high-end art where you sit there with, I'm taking this all so seriously and letting this all sink in a truly emotional level. That is not what this film is. This film is meant to entertain you, and it really does. I was highly entertained. Like I said, I laughed a lot. The action scenes are great, and the cast all did a really good job. The soundtrack was awesome, and Skeletor in this film is one of my favourite things ever. A highly entertaining character. Like I said, I saw it in IMAX, so that's a big way to see it. If I was to be critical, I could see that some people thinking this film is a bit too long. This film is just over 2 hours and 20 minutes long, which obviously for a film like Masters of the Universe is probably considered to be quite a long film. I wasn't bothered by it. I could see why someone might be though. However, I think a lot of that though is because, like I say, the action sequences are quite long. There's no like fight scene which is only like a minute. Every fight scene is like a huge action set piece, and like I say, some of them even lead into other things, so I can see that adding to a lot of the runtime. I think a huge amount of the film's runtime is dedicated to action sequences. However, because they were all really good for the most part, I haven't got a problem with that. I was highly entertained, but like I say, I can see why someone might think, okay, this film's dragging on a bit. Overall, I didn't feel that way. Personally, I can just see why someone might feel like that. Especially, like I say, it is 2 hours 20, it's just over 2 hours 20 minutes, and for a Masters of the Universe film, I can see why someone would be like, isn't that a little bit long? So I can understand that. But it personally didn't bother me. I just thought, like I say, I just thought this film was really entertaining. I personally also think the tone for the film was perfect. I've seen some people complaining that it wasn't dark enough, that it wasn't gritty enough, that it was too funny, it was trying to be too funny, and it was a little bit silly. But at the same time, I don't really know how you could make a film like Masters of the Universe dark and gritty and serious and it work. I feel like if you were to do that, you would upset more people by doing it like that than by doing it like this. I just don't think it's really a concept and a property that you can really take super seriously. I think if you were trying to take it serious, well, trying to take it really seriously, you would lose a lot of what people like about it and what made it work in the first place. You'd be losing too much of its original identity to do that. I mean, I could be wrong. There might be some long-time fans who completely disagree with me on that, and that is absolutely fine. But a lot of people also do think, no, but the tone for the film was perfect. A lot of fans seem to have really enjoyed it from what I've read. So I don't know. But obviously at the end of the day, that is just going to be more of a taste and preference thing than was it bad or was it good, was it right or wrong. That's just going to be more however the person's watching it, and then you can objectively say about the film itself in terms of quality. I personally really enjoyed the tone and thought that they did it perfectly for what this film is and what the franchise is as a whole. And I personally think that they made the right decision to make the film in the way that they did, and I was really entertained by it overall. Travis Knight is already one of my favourite directors, because he made Bumblebee, and Bumblebee is genuinely in my top 10 favourite films ever. I am a huge Transformers nerd. Transformers is the IP that I know the most about, the lore that I know the most about, the characters that I know like the most of. That Transformers is my thing personally, and I think he did a great job with Bumblebee, and like I say, he is genuinely one of my favourite filmmakers, and this film only solidified that, because this film was highly entertaining. I had an absolute blast watching it, and watching this film, all that it did for me was solidify the fact that it should be Travis Knight who has been leading the Transformers films, especially with recently with what happened with Rise of the Beasts and the very much up in the air thing about it right now. This film just solidified that for me. He clearly knows how to take franchises and make something new and cool out of them whilst keeping the original spirit of them alive. He clearly can do that because he's done it twice now, and I think he did a great job with this film. And like I say, as a Transformers fan, all this film did for me in that sense was solidify why he should be the one steering the franchise. So yes, overall, highly entertaining film. Everyone in it did a good job. I recommend you go see it. I recommend you go see it on the biggest screen possible. I recommend you go see it regardless if you're a long-time fan of the franchise or if this film would be, you know, your first experience with it in any capacity. As a film itself, in terms of quality, I would probably give it an 8.75 out of 10. However, its entertainment value is a genuine 9.5 out of 10. This film is highly entertaining. I laughed loads. The action was really cool. The cast all do a great job. The music was amazing. Nearly looked perfect, apart from, like I said, the odd little thing. And there's nothing really negative I can say about this film, because it didn't try and do too much. It didn't underdo anything. I think it did everything that a film like this could do almost perfectly. There's very little I can say about it in a bad way or in a highly critical way. And like I say, I don't think this film was going for high-end cinema anyway. So I just had a lot of fun with it. It is a highly entertaining film. And Skeletor, I do think will be a future sort of cult thing. I genuinely do. I think for years now there will be reference to this version of the character. There will be memes. He will be used in just on the internet a lot. In generally speaking, I do think it is a Jim Carrey, Grinch Robotnik type situation. I do think Jared Leto genuinely did a great job with the character, and it was my personal highlight of the film. So yes, those are my thoughts on Masters of the Universe. Highly entertaining film, highly recommend you go see it. And it hasn't been doing very well at the box office, which is a shame, because I do think this has a lot of potential as a franchise. Hopefully it has a bump at the box office. Hopefully it does really well on digital at home. I just think nowadays, with the cost of everything, people are going to the cinema less, and film companies are doing a lot to promote watching things at home, whilst also asking audiences to go and pay to see films at the cinema. And obviously it's a gamble, because people might not want to do both. People might not be able to afford to do both. People might not be able to. People might not be able to afford to do either. So, you know, it's just one of those situations. However, if you can go and you're thinking about going, I recommend you do, because there's a strong chance that you will have a really good time. Anyway, like I say, those are my thoughts. I would just be repeating myself if I kept going, other than just saying again, it's just really fun, and I just recommend it for that. It's just a really, really, really good time. However, though, you know, if you have seen it and you don't agree with me, that's absolutely fine. Let me know in the comments. If you do agree with me, and again, let me know whatever you think. If you agreed with everything I said, or none of what I said, anywhere in the middle, and just let me know. And also let me know if you know, haven't seen it, but this film made you, this review made you go and see it. Let me know that as well. So, yep, I'm always up for discussion. As long as it's respectful, I'm always up for a discussion, regardless of if it's agreeing or disagreeing. I'm always up for it. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching this video. I hope this video did persuade you to go and see it, if you were on the fence, you know, if you were going to or not. And regardless, though, I hope you had, you have a good rest of your day. I hope everything is going as well as it can do in your lives generally. And thank you again for watching this video. Please feel free to check out any of my older videos if you haven't seen any of them. And I also hope to see you in my next video as well. I hope everything's going as well as it can. Thank you guys again for watching. Bye bye.